Pokémon Legends EA officially has a DLC, announced even before the base game itself has come out, and this DLC is centered around the mythical Pokémon Hoopa. Hoopa was first introduced in Generation 6 in Pokémon X and Y, and was never given an explicit role in those games, a fate shared by many other mythical Pokémon throughout Pokémon history. Pokémon sort of tried to weave Hoopa into the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games through post-game portals and a clerk who tells a mysterious story about how he came into the possession of an empty prison bottle. But now we have the Legends series, a series that is designed to offer far more fleshed out lore and backstories to underutilized Pokémon that were intended to be important. And it seems Hoopa is going to have a central role in Lumio City, as it causes distortions around the town and offers a connection to a mysterious space, Hyperspace Lumios. In today's video, we're going to try and figure out what Hoopa is up to, how it ties into the lore of both Mega Evolution and the wider Legends series in general, and most importantly, how this could have an unbelievably big impact on the future games that Pokémon releases. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoy, and as always, a huge thank you to our channel members for powering another video. Don't forget, I'll be giving away a copy of Legends EA to one of you lucky members, and the winner will be revealed on Monday, October the 6th. There's still time to enter, so click the join button to be automatically entered and gain access to all of the member perks, plus the chance to win it. Now, let's dive into today's video. We don't know all that much about the Mega Dimension DLC yet. In fact, the base game of ZA hasn't even been released yet, so we don't even have the context of the full plot to go off. But with a little bit of detective work, I think we can figure out the gist of what could be going on here. The only info we have so far comes from the short teaser trailer and some short descriptions on the Pokémon website. From this, we know the Mega Dimension DLC is going to trigger spatial distortions that suddenly appear in Lumio City. We know that they connect to a mysterious place called Hyperspace Lumios, and we know that our character, plus the rest of Team MZ, are going to investigate exactly what's going on. We also know that these spatial distortions seem to be caused by Hoopa. Hoopa is a Pokémon that physically resembles a genie. It's described in Pokédex entries as a troublemaker, and it supposedly likes to collect things it likes and transport them to a secret place. That place likely being its home, wherever that is, and we'll come on to that shortly. Hoopa has two forms, a confined form and an unbound form. Its base, less powerful form is its confined form, and it's usually depicted as mischievous, even doing a cheeky and perhaps slightly sinister laugh in the reveal trailer as it reveals to us the Hyperspace Dimension, in which we go on to discover the X and Y forms of Mega Raichu. But here's the interesting thing. It would seem its confined form is actually an unnatural version of it. Someone, somewhere, created an item called a prison bottle. This item is what's needed to both contain and unleash Hoopa's true power. And when Hoopa's true power is unleashed, it reverts to its almighty natural form, its unbound form. In this form, Hoopa Unbound is incredibly powerful. It has 6 floating arms that it can project from its body unattached, and it has 6 rings that it can use to summon powerful legendary Pokemon. Hoopa's confined form can do this too, but the advantage of Hoopa's unbound form is that it can extend the rings to a greater size, meaning it can transport larger things like castles and even islands through space. It also has 6 rings compared to confined Hoopa's 3, and it uses these 6 rings to surround its opponent and beat them down with a vicious attack called Hyperspace Fury. Hoopa Confined is a ghost psychic type, with the ghost part implying it's a kind of wandering spirit version of the true Hoopa. When Hoopa achieves its unbound form, it loses the ghost typing and replaces it with dark, implying it's a more natural, dastardly force of nature. So we know that Hoopa has the potential for incredible power, but what is its motive and who created the prison bottle? Well, in the main series games, the bottom line is that we don't know. But the 18th Pokemon movie does give us some clues. In this movie, the prison bottle was created 100 years ago, after Hoopa Unbound repeatedly showed up to a village stealing food, and after the villagers accepted Hoopa summoning gold as payment for the food, it continued to show up. Over time, taunting its power more and more, summoning legendary Pokemon that it would then defeat to show off. But this got out of hand, and Hoopa became too destructive, so the prison bottle was created from fire, water and ground to seal it, thus creating Confined Hoopa, with its true form sealed away as a dark spirit inside the bottle. So with the backstory of Hoopa explained, we now need to find out why Hoopa is on the loose in Legends EA, creating hyperspace holes and essentially creating a portal to Hyperspace Lumios. And what even is Hyperspace Lumios? Well, as we've established, Hoopa is a greedy, power-hungry Pokemon that likes to show off its power and seek resources and treasures. But is it a truly natural Pokemon? Where did it come from, and why is it so powerful? Well, I think I might have some idea that's going to help us unravel this even further. Arceus is the overarching god of the Pokemon universe, and it's described as having shaped the world with its 1,000 arms. Now, it depends if you want to interpret those 1,000 arms literally or figuratively, but in order for an all-powerful being like Arceus to shape a physical reality in its own vision, it needed to create other gods. Dialga and Palkia for space and time, the Lake Trio for willpower, emotion and knowledge, Primal Kyogre and Groudon for earth, sea and ground landscapes. These are just some examples that we already know about, but so many other gods will have been needed to make Arceus' vision into a reality. Regigigas is described as having pulled the continents together, and I recently posted one of my favourite theories about how Ho-Oh and Lugia are saintly reincarnates of Xerneas and Yveltal after Arceus sought more order after the use of the ultimate weapon. So these 1,000 arms described in Arceus' Pokédex entries could be a metaphor for 1,000 god Pokemon with unique abilities that helped Arceus shape its orderly reality into a real physical expression. Hoopa then could have been one of Arceus' most powerful gods, perhaps even literally representing 6 of those 1,000 total arms, where others may only represent 1 or 2. Hoopa then would have been blessed by Arceus with the power to transcend physical space using its ability to create portals. Arceus wanted the universe to be vast and enormous, but its sacred vision required physical beings to be restricted to the notion of physical space. But to shape that reality in the first place, it needed to birth the existence of a Pokemon who could quickly and efficiently travel between vast stretches of the universe. And that's why Hoopa is able to summon legendary Pokemon like it does in the movie and like it does in the post-game of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It was originally designed to use its hyperspace powers to transport Arceus' other gods, or arms, to destinations of Arceus' choosing quickly and easily. This power made Hoopa in its original unbound form one of the most powerful beings Arceus ever unleashed into the universe, and at some point through the vast timescale of the universe, it gained independent willpower, something that Arceus likely will have blessed it with on purpose in its vision of free will. But Hoopa became selfish, greedy, and prideful. In the movie, it clearly has access to treasure it has likely previously stolen, and across all media, including the main video game series, it seems to be on a mission to seek more treasure and power in general in its conquest for advancement. And this is where it gets interesting, because we have to consider, what is Hoopa actually seeking? Well, the DLC suggests Hoopa may have something to do with Mega Evolution. When I saw the reveal trailer initially, I originally thought maybe Hoopa is the Pokemon responsible for Mega Evolution. It's a Pokemon that thematically represents the notions of unbound and confined power. It has yellow, pink and purple tones, which are very prominent in the Mega Evolution rainbow coloration that appears both when Pokemon Mega Evolve and radiates throughout the Pokemon once they are Mega Evolved in ZA, particularly in the lighting around their edges. This is still a possibility, but regardless of whether or not Hoopa is directly involved in the process of Mega Evolution itself, what if Hoopa is in fact just seeking the Mega Energy and Mega Stones for itself? Hoopa is shown in the trailer in its confined form, meaning someone has contained its power. Perhaps it's seeking powerful energy to regain its unbound form, and perhaps it senses that someone in Lumio City can help it achieve that. 3,000 years ago, AZ built and unleashed the ultimate weapon, which caused a disturbance in space-time. This may have been the event that either opened Hoopa's realm or directly created hyperspace, and this theory would work whether Hoopa was a creation of Arceus or if it were some sort of independent ruler or god of its own realm. So when Hoopa tried to greedily teleport AZ's castle 3,000 years ago, it was likely trying to steal some powerful artifact, perhaps the Eternal Flower imbued with infinity energy, or perhaps even the ultimate weapon itself. Perhaps it seeks to overthrow Arceus or gain its infinity power. After all, it took Arceus itself to intervene in the calamity caused by Hoopa in the movie, because all the other legendary Pokemon failed to quell it. So this all leads to one huge likelihood: Hoopa is possibly working with some human to regain its unbound form and unleash some devastating power. It's difficult to decipher who that might be, considering we haven't met all the characters and we don't fully understand the intentions of all the clans in the ZA base game yet. But we do know that Team Flare were one such organisation that sought to restore the power of the ultimate weapon very recently. We know that the leader of Team Flare, Lysander, fired the weapon on himself. Lysander believed the world's beauty was threatened by overpopulation and human greed. How ironic then would it be if Hooper saved him from the blast with a portal, and is now working together with Lysander from the shadows to gain the power to once again fire the weapon at full capacity to achieve a mutual goal? Or what if the standing professor, Mabel, who is an ex-Team Flare member, is the one working with Hooper? After all, in her X and Y dialogue, she was obsessed with the idea of latent energy inside living things, bringing out potential in its highest form. If she ends up being one of the reasons this painful rogue mega evolution phenomenon is taking place all over Lumio City, what if the main story of ZA is Mabel's Plan A in motion, right under our noses, to discover and experiment with bringing out this latent power, like the sick, morally lacking scientist she once and perhaps always was? And when we stop that scheme, perhaps her plan B is to use the might of Hooper to restore its unbound form and rule with an iron fist, forcibly bringing out the most powered up version of every Pokemon as she builds the world in her own vision. That is a real possibility. But there's still one massive part of this that we haven't answered. What is Hyperspace Lumiose, and how does Hooper have access to it? In Oras, Zinnia, a descendant of the ancient Draconid people that worship Rayquaza, talks about the distortion caused by the use of the ultimate weapon 3,000 years ago. Through her dialogue, she also implies that there is another parallel world where the weapon was not unleashed, a non-mega timeline. So far, Johto, Sinnoh, Unova, Galar, and Paldea are the regions in which Mega Evolution has not been depicted on their soil. Sinnoh, Galar, and Paldea, though, have all been depicted with other expressions of Arceus' infinity energy. Noble Pokemon in Sinnoh when it was still called Hisui, Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon in Galar, and terrestrialized Pokemon in Paldea. This leaves Johto and Unova as the only two regions where Arceus' infinity energy has not been depicted whatsoever. And it would seem that Pokemon's new commercial strategy is to reinstate Mega Pokemon due to their overwhelming popularity and marketability compared to the other battle gimmicks. With the mighty comeback of Mega Pokemon, and with Johto and Unova being the regions we've gone the longest without seeing, the only two regions that are stuck in the DS pre-3D model era, the natural conclusion then is that Johto and Unova, with Megalore fully intact, could be the setting of a main series game very soon, especially since the new Mega TCG series trailer was set in Castelia City, and this may help us realize what Hyperspace Lumiose actually is. In my last video, I spoke about the timelines within Arceus' universe. Arceus watches over every version of reality within its universe, branching off into countless timelines. Not only do Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald represent different timelines within the same universe, but perhaps also your save file represents one of Arceus' branched realities within its universe. If that's the case, and Hooper really has the power to use its portals to go anywhere within Arceus' physical realm, then Hooper can travel to different timelines. Just like we had to choose the Diamond or Pearl clan in Legends Arceus to determine which god we met, well, this time, perhaps when we go through Hooper's portal, we'll be able to choose between two parallel timeline destinations, the X or Y version of events, hence why we seemingly have to pick between Mega Raichu X or Y, and furthermore, perhaps finally explaining why Charizard and Mewtwo both have X and Y megaforms. That could then see us meet either a new version of Yveltal or Xerneas, and this would imply that Hooper can access any timeline within Arceus' branched realities that it wants, however many there are, and that would mean that if the Mega Stones and Mega Energy in general are floating around in Hooper's realm, all it would take would be Hooper's will to show up in one timeline's Johto or Unova, unleashing the Mega Energy into that realm. Then all of a sudden, three things align. One, the fact that Johto and Unova are categorically the regions that are most due a revisit. Two, the continuity of the Legends game having an overarching narrative despite them being set in different regions and time periods. And three, you also have an in-game Pokemon that could get us there to see a modern Johto or Unova with Megalore fully intact. Click the link at the end of the video to see my theory on how a Johto and Unova combined game is very likely to come, and let me know all of your thoughts on today's theory down in the comments. Until next time, love you gang.